it's a great aspect of it. Being here tonight reminds me of one of the advantages of growing up in an Italian immigrant hood, and that is there are a lot of festas, and there's a lot of focus on La Familia. But it's even better here tonight because the focus goes beyond the Italian inner family to the outer family, and so much of what we've heard from everyone, the performers and the young people, the awards, indicate how much all of our lives are connected and how much good work all of you have done, which is really terrific. All of us seek the privilege, I think, of being able to define the journeys that we take, what those purposes of the journeys are, and even as important, with whom we take the journeys. And I think what the Long Island Alliance illustrates, and so many others of you who are doing so much good work, is that when you have, as Long Islander Walt Whitman said, camarados, people who really share the purpose and the morality of those journals, you can't lose, because you're on a march, you're on a mission with other people who matter, and are going to share it with you, and are going to be your friends and colleagues and intimates for life. That begins with your family, if you're lucky. And I've been lucky in that regard by having a great spouse. I think we met for the first time when William Sloane Coffin was the principal speaker. I think she went to hear him instead of me. I was speaking in another room. But that was probably a sign of her good judgment. But we're also lucky to have children who debated the world with us, and were literally activists from the time they were in utero. So it's nice to see these kinds of things going on. And of course, our friendships with Marty and Margaret were just extraordinary. And to see their merry band of children and grandchildren, and what an amazing pass along of the DNA. I just want to conclude with three final observations, accustomed as I am to brevity. I try to keep my glasses off as long as possible, showing that Marty is a little older than I. However, it has been said about Marty that he had the wisdom of age in his youth and the fire of youth in his age. And anyone who's ever played ball with him knows that. So my three final observations are, an analyst, a social analyst who I admired a great deal, died this year, Robert Bellah. And the book that I liked, that he particularly emphasized, took a title from something that Thomas Jefferson said. And the book was called Habits of the Heart. And it had the subtitle, Individualism and Commitment in American Society. Like Pope Francis now, my favorite saint that he's named after, like Pope Francis, Bellah said, individualism is a wonderful thing, but there can be a cancer of individualism, and a lot of Americans misunderstand rugged individualism. It's only you. Whereas if you really understand the American heritage of what Jefferson said when he meant habits of the heart, that we're all striving towards benevolence, res publica, how to make society better for everyone. And there are all kinds of studies that show now that when you work for the public good, it rebounds to your good, not only in health, but other kinds of ways. And I conclude now with two of my favorite quotes. Not surprising, one of them I picked up from Margaret and Marty. I often borrow it from them. If Linda Longmire's not giving a quote on some occasion, I got a lot of hers. And this one is, in fact, from William Sloane Coffin, who was just amazing. Now, he headed Peace Action. He was such a great force about the Vietnam War and others. And here's his comment. I think it goes to the heart of so much that we've heard and discussed tonight. And I quote Coffin. Hope is a state of mind independent of the state of the world. If your heart's full of hope, you can be persistent. Nice to have that word. You can be persistent when you can't be optimistic. You can keep the faith despite the evidence, knowing that only in so doing has the evidence any chance of changing. So while I'm not optimistic, I'm always hopeful. And that brings me finally to the comment that I admired as Robert Kennedy became a moral force in the last years of his life. The United States would have been a very, very different country if he'd gotten elected president in 1968. And actually, this last quote that I'm concluding with was drafted originally by our congressperson on Long Island, Allard Lowenstein, who was really a force for great social change as well. Few will have the greatness to bend history itself, but each of us can work to change a small portion of events. It is from the numberless diverse acts of courage and belief that human history is shaped. Each time a man or woman stands up for an ideal, or acts to improve the lot of others, or strikes out against injustice, he or she sends forth a tiny ripple of hope, and crossing each other from a million different centers of energy, and daring those ripples build a current which can sweep down the mightiest walls of oppression and resistance. Let's keep going forward. Peace and justice together.